evening and welcome to the... Is it even a good evening, Liam? It's a great evening. Great evening and welcome to the Joust. My name is Nagy. I'm here once again with my co-host Liam McNeil, the man who may or may not be wearing underpants on this very, very fine evening. You probably told me that in confidence, Liam, but I decided to share it with our viewers.
No, I'm happy to share it to the world, share it to the viewers. It's a chilly night. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but here we are, and I've done it, and I have to live with my decision. And if it isn't the consequences of my own actions creeping up on me with this cold winter's evening up my trouser leg.
We're in a very, very drafty part here at the Hamilton Station Hotel. See if you can find us in the crawl space. But it's a very exciting evening because it's not very often that we're talking about 3 wins on the trot by the Newcastle Knights. But before we can dive straight into that, we better cover a little segment we like to call the news. Jesus, I hit the microphone. A lot happening in the news, Liam. I'm so excited. My arms are flailing around like nobody's business.
And flail they should, because this next item came into the news mere hours ago. 9 hours, I believe, was the timestamp on it. And this
fresh
makes us furious, it's fresh.
I've always wanted to say, stop the presses! Just in, I don't know what context, it was just a thing where they're printing out.
Well, it's all printed digitally now. You probably can't stop it.
Ah, shit.
You hit play and it prints it and it's all done immediately. It's all laser printers now. You don't use the ink. What was that great quote? You never fight with the people who own the ink.
Yeah, you never argue with a man that buys ink by the ton. I think it was Kerry Packer.
Arguing with Rupert Murdoch, I
think
believe.
it was.
Those shills. Just shills, the pair of them. The pair of them. But this is a huge, huge news item. Now, obviously, we've discussed at great length the disagreements between the Rugby League Players Association and the NRL themselves, and it's taken a new and intriguing twist. Reminiscent of a time in the past, the NRL players are threatening to boycott the Dally Messenger Awards, Nagy. This is huge.
Well, it's happened before. It is, I was going to say, unprecedented, but it is precedented.
It's very precedented, in fact.
2003, 20 years ago.
To this very year.
20 years ago. I don't know what that means.
Well, I recently learned this. 1 score is 20 years. So saying 4 score and 20, you just may as well say 100.
Math.
I think it was 4 score and 4 years ago.
That probably makes more sense.
Any Lincoln enthusiasts, please get at us, Jousters. Our knowledge of the American Civil War isn't great.
That's not fantastic.
No. And if you want to discuss the Winter War and the continuation war between Russia and Finland, I can talk about that. But the Civil War is not my area of expertise. And I believe the Civil War was actually also a trade dispute.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. There's our connection, Jousters. That's how we circle back to the Dally M. And I think the greatest headline that's come out of this is that Craig Gower, the man who was unceremoniously robbed of the Dally M in 2003, said it's sad for the bloke who does win it, as the bloke who did win it in 2003.
Yeah, he was the one that couldn't go up there and accept the medal. It's a medal, isn't it?
It's a medal,
It's a medal,
worn around the neck.
Worn around the
neck.
neck.
In the traditional sense.
Of a medal. With some cloth or some ribbon, I don't know. Yeah.
I believe it's a green ribbon.
Green ribbon. Yeah.
Dangling it around the neck there.
And he won it, but they couldn't present it to him because they were boycotting that year.
Now, my thing with Craig Gower, though, is that, yes, he would have won the Dally M in 2003, but it would have been stripped from him a mere 2 years later because, Jousters, I'm going to read to you a little bit of rugby league history. Yeah. Every couple of months I like to read this this paragraph on Craig Gower's Wikipedia page because it's maybe the funniest thing that's ever happened in rugby league. In December 2005, Jousters, this was 2 years after the Dally M controversy, Craig Gower was fired as Penrith captain after incidents at a charity golf event where he argued with several guests, groped the then-teenage daughter of former league player Wayne Pearce, chased Mitchell Pearce, Knights hero, around with a bottle before vomiting on him, streaked nude around the resort, it's still coming, Jousters, stole and crashed a golf cart, held a butter knife to the throat of a Sydney radio personality before throwing it at resort guests, and engaged in a brawl with resort security before being ejected from the official function and detained by police. Now, Nagy, there are so many victimless crimes that happen on this earth. So many crimes where it's hard to tell who is the victim and who is the perpetrator. Absolutely. I would argue that this is a very clear case of a heavily victimful crime.
Victimful crime, yeah. It's such it seems like a wild day for many, but that was just Thursday for Craig Gower. That was just a regular day that he woke up and said, I'm really going to not even push the boat out. I'm just going to do what I do.
Maybe this was, a delayed trauma from Craig not receiving the award in 2003. It was a delayed trauma. But I think we need to circle back again to the current day. And I think I hold no ill will against the players for carrying out this union action. Yeah, these communists. Yeah, as you know, I'm a pinko.
You're you're quite the communist.
I'm quite the communist. My grandfather taught me everything I knew about Karl Marx. It's not too much. I know he had a big old beard, great big bushy
beard.
But I would be fine if the players did this. I'd be fine because I think the players need to get what the players need. And if you listen to the shills,
The fat cats.
the fat cats at the
Yeah.
top, they're saying, no, these millionaires, they just want more money.
Yeah.
That's all they want. They want Kalen Ponga to be on $4 million a year.
Yeah.
That's all the RLPA wants. Well, that's not it, Joust.
Nonsense.
Nonsense. It's rubbish coming at you from the right-wing NRL media.
Yeah.
They've started their own Twitter, competitor.
Have they?
Of course, Donald started his, the
Truth Social.
the Truth Social. I think they're trying to start the NRL 360 Social, and no one's going to go on it.
No.
So I think it's safe to say, Jousters, that we here at the Joust are not upset by this industrial action being undertaken, and
No.
we think maybe it might be the right thing to do to boycott the, the frills.
The collective needs to look after the little guy. And cheers to the workers of the world.
Yes, to the workers of the world, unite, and NRL players, you are the workers of the world.
Yes.
You're part of the working class culture of rugby league.
Absolutely.
Even those on $1 million plus. That's not a working class wage in this country anymore.
Not forgetting that the whole reason the rugby league started was a bit of a union movement against rugby union.
Rugby league was born out of class struggle. Rugby league was born because the average man couldn't afford to take time off work.
No.
You had your inner city Sydney toffs.
Of course.
They're working in their accounting firms. They're working in their banks. If they did an ACL, they can just keep working from their desks.
of
The
course.
average man,
Working from home was huge in 1908.
it was enormous. It was enormous. But, the average working class man, you do pop your AC joint on a Saturday afternoon.
Done.
You can't go down in the mines. How are
can't-
you going to swing a pickaxe with a torn pec?
Yeah.
You're out for a year.
Throw the garbage in the garbage truck. Probably
Yeah.
not a truck at the time, probably horse and cart.
Which I love. Every couple of years, there's always an NRL story that comes out about a player working as a garbo.
Garbo, yeah.
I remember the last one was Aloni Vunakethe, who played for the Roosters. That was a whole big story at the time. The former garbo playing for the Roosters on minimum wage.
Yeah, if you once a garbo, always a garbo.
Matt
apparently.
King also was a
Matt King
garbo,
and he sort of looked like a garbo. I don't know. He
did.
was very hairy, and he just had that sort of grin about him, like he'd gone through a lot of trash.
And you remember growing up, they'd always tell you, "Oh, you got to do well in school. You don't want to drive a garbage truck." I remember
They're very well paid.
I remember in year 9, I think it was Mr. Butler. We were in Japanese class, I believe, and
course, yeah.
one of the boys said, "Oh, something garbage truck driver," and Mr. Butler said, "No, you'd be better off doing that than being a teacher."
Yeah,
because they get far
absolutely.
more handsomely paid,
And-
and so they should.
And why? Because they have a strong union. But speaking of players coming and going and the collective and the singular man, there's been a bit of player movement.
There has been a bit of player movement, and this player who's about to retire really could benefit from what the RLPA are fighting for, is post-career injury surgery. Josh Hodgson,
Yeah.
arguably at one point in the game, the equal best hooker for Cameron Smith. People often forget that
He
at
was
one point in
the
time,
ball playing hooker.
yeah, the
new
ball
age
playing,
hooker.
the very deft, crafty man, the little scruffy Englishman from the north. He looks fresh out of the mines, doesn't he?
He does, and I'm sure he was up there, singing a song and swinging an axe and probably, getting the black lung and dying at the age of 38.
And
But
that's why he's had to retire so early. The black lung, it sticks with you.
it's not often that you see retirement and the reason for it. Usually it's like, neck problems or this. It was the black lung. It was the black lung of Hodgson. So he's
Finally caught up with him.
caught up with him. Old Yella's been put out to pasture. Now, I saw this poster come up, Liam, and I thought, you never really want to see a movie with an animal on the front. Of
No.
because that animal's gonna die. That's basically how it happens. Oh, does Lassie die?
Maybe.
No, I don't
well,
know.
Free Willy's the great counterpoint. Free Willy is freed. If anything, his life improves.
Yeah, or maybe like captivity. I don't know. He could never survive out in the wild. But it's just
Blackfish was it was propaganda.
Of course,
It was propaganda put out by the Anti-Orca Society. You don't know that, Jousters, but there's a big union action involving a lot of orcas who really enjoyed their time in the pens at SeaWorld.
They love it there.
They love it there.
They never survive in the wild.
No.
Old Yeller, he's dead. Lassie, I think they think Lassie gets shot.
What about Skippy the bush kangaroo?
They're all dead now.
I think we're
suppose.
disproving our point.
Yeah, but that's more of
Skippy
a-
surely ended up in a jar of dog food.
Well, I'm sure Skippy only had about 14 seconds of actual footage, and they just recycled it. I don't think he was actually ever there. How they whistle? They called Skippy.
Yeah, with the gum leaf.
Yeah, very
Did you ever
clever.
try that?
Clever animal. No, I can't do anything like
Again, I grew up in the country. We did things like that, and it worked. It worked, Jousters. We don't need no fancy whistles. That's how the referees in Group 2 officiated the game. They just carried out a gum leaf in their pocket.
That's all you
Offside
need.
penalty. Woo!
sounds like one of those whistles you get at the fete.
Who's going to replace him, though, Nagy?
Joey Lussick, a person that I completely forgot ever existed.
Younger brother of Darcy Lussick, of course, who was famous for punching.
Yeah.
Not being very good at anything else, but I think he could throw a punch. And he could catch a punch, too.
30% of what you need in NRL, really. Like, if you can throw it, if you can catch one singular punch, you're basically there. That's your prerequisite.
There's your $1 million man. That's who the RLPA is advocating for, the man who can take a punch.
Now, when
because that's who's suffering the most in this industrial dispute.
St. Helens isn't going to be quite happy because they're losing a player, but they're actually getting a player of their own. Not from the Parramatta Eels, which you would assume, but no, it's actually coming from the St. George Dragons.
Now, what you'll notice, Joust, is in those two pictures we've just shown, St. Helens are especially happy because they don't need to buy a new jersey.
Same jersey.
It's the same jersey. They're just sending Moses over. They've got his St. George jersey in his bag. He's going to turn up, just pull it on. Oh, yeah, here we go.
I am noticing, if we go back to the St. Helens jerseys, they're sponsored by Bargains.
Just miscellaneous bargains.
Bargains.
Just the concept of bargains is now somehow sponsoring a rugby league team. The funniest thing about that is not the worst sponsorship deal in the history of the English Rugby League. It was only 4 or 5 years ago. They signed a deal with a trucking company.
Yeah.
And as the naming rights sponsor of the English Super League.
Was it called I Like Trucking?
No, but it should well have been. I'll be petitioning for a rebrand on that. They received $0,
Yeah.
but what they got instead was players' faces on trucks being driven around the country.
Perfect.
A major sponsor gave them no money
Yeah.
and just printed pictures of players and somehow were, it's no wonder rugby league's dying in England.
No, that's right.
They also famously were sponsored by Papa John's, who offered nothing more than post-game pizzas for their players.
Oh, and cans of peas at one stage.
Cans
as
of
well.
peas, yeah.
Yeah.
The game is dying in its very birthland.
It's been on the way out. On a player that we wish went to Super League, Liam. Obviously, a lot of players are playing in the NRL. We say, well, why don't you just bugger off? Tarek Sims.
Yes, what a bad person.
We've had enough.
We're sick of him. We're sick of him.
It seems like he obviously with his high shot against our very own Jackson Hastings, the monk, on leave, he's decided to swing his arm and was sin bin, turned the game, which we'll get into a bit later. But he's found himself suspended, which is, I think, a great result for everyone involved, including the Melbourne Storm.
And those who were there at the game, I don't know if this actually came across on the speakers, but when he was sent off, me and Dad were sitting up in the nosebleeds, which is the best view. I would argue is the best view. The DJ, very, very quick on his feet, started blasting "Hit the Road, Jack," and "Don't Come Back." No more, no more, no more, no more.
Wonderful.
As loud as he possibly could.
Wonderful.
It was truly a great rugby league moment. And speaking of great rugby league moments, a funny send-off is always a good thing. We always like a humour send-off, and the NRLW has had their first humour send-off.
Didn't take long.
First send-off at all, in fact. No, it took a long time. The competition's been going several years. They've never had a send-off.
That's true.
A biting incident.
Love
we
it.
love a good biting incident.
Yeah, if this was a less, professional show, biting between female players, we might say wow, but when we won't sink to that level.
We won't. That is well below the standards that you expect from this, comedy adjacent podcast. But to Ashley Werner, the biter, we would say this is a victimless crime.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah, potentially.
It's just,
I hope the bitee is up to date with all her shots.
Was she rabid? No one knows this. Rabid. Yeah.
Well, I believe if you're rabid, if you find you've got the symptoms, you're already dead. It's too late.
Too late. Yeah.
My dad's cousin died from a bite bat.
I thought you were going to say died of rabies.
No, well, that's what kills you from being bitten by the bat.
Oh, they're bitten by the bat. Oh.
Yeah. I think they were hanging around Bat Island in Bellingen there. They're little bastards, bats. We don't endorse bats on this, show.
We've been anti-bat for years.
But now it's not all, players who aren't the Knights doing bad things.
Of course.
Mr. Boyle, Adam
Boyle.
Elliott decided to do a bit of a silly thing.
High tackle as well, was it?
Tried to swing his arm into someone's noggin. I can't remember whose noggin it was. But again, if it's a Knights player doing it, it's victimless crime.
Victimless crime.
Plus, he can just take that out of Mrs. Elliott's wage. She's earning plenty of money. She's one of those big wigs that the Murdoch shills are saying don't deserve any more money.
Bringing home the bacon. Bacon, as they say. Yeah.
Don't say that. I had to cut down my cholesterol. I have to eat less bacon.
Oh, well,
it's infuriating. I don't like it
delicious
at all.
pork products.
But to follow up with a lot of violence, a lot of rugby league violence, it's time for a good news story. Now, we all know, Jousters, that Papua New Guinea is a place where rugby league is in the blood. It's one of the few countries where rugby league is the national sport. In fact, it is the only one. It's been announced on the internet
Yeah.
that Papua New Guinea will be hosting a Tri-Nations tournament at the end of the season with the Cook Islands and Fiji Rugby League. Now, there's been calls for, Pacific Island tournaments, Pacific Island competitions for so long, and to see one finally happening, fantastic. I love to see it. I love to see it because these nations and their national teams don't get the opportunities to play as often as they should. You've got a World Cup every couple of years, but it's always poorly organised and no one really cares about it.
Absolutely.
You've got the odd one-off test. No one really cares about them either.
Nobody cares.
So I think to have a tournament, featuring three fairly up-and-coming rugby league powers.
Strong boys.
Strong boys of rugby league. I think it's fantastic. It's about time.
Yeah.
It's about time Peter V'landys, who I assume was against this. He said, no, these bigwigs in PNG don't deserve more money. Andrew, cut the check.
Now, Liam, I'd be happy to see this in my lifetime because I've realised I reached a point in my life where there's things that I may or may not see in my lifetime. And now I was rewarded.
Your own toes. You'll never
my own
see them
toes.
again.
Never see them again. Too fat, you see. My stomach, not my toes. My toes are regular sized, but swelling. There's some things that I think I might not ever see this in my lifetime. Like Hades Comet, I don't know, next time that's coming around. Probably going to be outside my lifetime.
Could be.
The Knights beating the Bulldogs 66-0.
Oh,
that
yeah.
might be the only time I see that in my lifetime.
May well be.
Then the Knights winning 2 games in a row. I thought, hang on a second, we didn't see this for a while. It might be the last time that I see this in my lifetime. But a very, very special thing happened, Liam.
Not once, not twice, but thrice,
And who
thrice.
was the third game, Liam? Who was that against? It
Those Rupert Murdoch shills, the
down
Melbourne
in
Storm, because of course we remember that's where Melbourne came from. They were created by News Limited as an opposition to Kerry Packer's Channel 9.
Of course.
And so they are the biggest Murdoch shills of all, so it feels particularly good to beat them. By the plucky upstarts of the rugby league alternative media. The
8 years, Liam. 8 years.
8 years,
eight
Mr.
long years.
Speaker.
I may not see the next 8 years, Liam, but on my trajectory, I'm heading downwards. 8 years, 11 games. We have not seen the Newcastle Knights beat the Melbourne Storm. But
not only that, we were roundly shellacked in all of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking earlier before the show about that famous Knights win against Melbourne in the semi-final, perhaps in 2013.
2013.
Would that
of
be the
course.
last time we beat the Storm?
No, we beat them in 2014, the Kirk Gidley kick from the sideline.
Oh, in the
And-
comeback game we discussed last week.
And then for some weird reason in 2015, when we got the spoon in our last sort of four-ish games, we played quite well. Danny Badiris was coaching the side after Rick Stone was sacked. And somehow we beat the Storm. I don't know how.
through grit and determination
that was
and the working class spirit of Newcastle. That's how we beat
it. Was the hoodoo against Craig Bellamy, who doesn't play well against interim coaches.
Oh,
It just
I didn't know
happened. He's got a really poor record against them.
Well, maybe that's an indictment that Adam O'Brien is just an interim coach.
It's
a 4-year-long interim coach.
The way we're going through coaches, every coach is an interim coach. We're during another rebuild at the Melbourne Storm at home. 20,000 people in the audience.
Me and Dad were just two of the. We were a mere atom.
Yeah.
In the enormous multi-celled organism that was the Newcastle Knights crowd on Saturday, the 22nd of July, at this famous victory. Now, I've been to plenty of Knights games.
I have.
I spent a lot of time in the grandstand. You spent a lot of time in the grandstand. I think this may be the greatest Knights win I have seen in my time going to McDonald Jones Stadium.
It was look. I can only imagine the kind of feeling and energy there was in the crowd, especially.
Some would say electric. I would disagree because that is to do a disservice as to how raucous and rowdy it was.
Yeah.
Oh, the sounds that were coming out, the noises, the feelings, the ground was shaking.
12-0, not after 7 minutes, Liam, but was there any doubts in your mind?
Yes,
the crowds?
heaps. As soon as Nick Meaney raced away and scored that first try, there was a collective feeling of, oh, well, here we go.
Here we go.
But it was nice, actually. Nick Meaney, he got a good cheer as he was streaking away for his try. He's a good boy. He's a good boy.
Seems like the one that got away.
Yeah,
he? He's
he
like
does.
he'd be like an ex-partner that we could have made it work if we were just in different parts of our lives.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, it would have been a great winger outside Kalimpong, but he wouldn't be because we've got the best two wingers in Colin. But yeah, no, it was absolutely just a remarkable rugby league experience to be there. And like I said, it was a bit of a, oh, here we go again moment. And then Trent Liero scored. There was a bit of a, oh, well, there you go. The
Soft
here we go
try.
again.
Yeah.
Very soft try. But from there on, the crowd lifted, and the crowd lifted the players, and the players fed off the crowd. It was a symbiosis,
Wonderful.
between crowd and players. It was amazing.
They had 17 players out there. We had 20,300 and No, 400.
20,392 also players.
Also players.
Yeah.
Also players. I can't do the addition.
And then, of course, the tens of thousands of people in the Newcastle pubs and clubs.
Yeah.
The hundreds of thousands of Newcastle people in their living rooms cheering at their televisions. And you could feel the players just eating it, chowing it down, drawing the nutrients out of it, and vomiting it all up onto the Melbourne Storm team.
Straight there, all over their face and shirts. They all had to go to the laundromat. I was watching it at my good friend Seth Bowe's house. And,
G'day, Bowsy.
He's got a young daughter who was asleep. She's only 18 months old. And so I had to watch it and then celebrate as much as all the energy had nowhere to go because it was in complete silence. So it was like a real which is because you don't want to wake the baby.
You don't want to wake the baby. That'd be very rude of you. It'd be a terrible house guest if you
Terrible
wake the
house
baby.
guest. Well, I'm a terrible house guest regardless, but I would have really pushed it over the edge. Liam, for a particular player that you think has done a great job, where you like to take our hats off to it, and you've got one there, a bit of a surprise edition at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Because it's not the first time we've taken a hat off to him.
Now, this player, who we're going to name as my first hats off for the week, or my only hats off, we do one each, of course, as you just as well know. Start of the season, 7 billion people on this planet, tens of billions of creatures, mammals, fish, reptiles, lizards, you name it. Multicellular organisms, single-celled organisms, every known living being, anything in the entire universe, told us that Phoenix Crossland is the worst player in rugby league.
That's
and
what
that
they
he
said.
did not deserve to be. Every single atom in existence told us that.
Yeah.
He's been phenomenal. Now,
been great.
The biggest thing for me that won Phoenix the hats off, and again, I don't think this really comes across in the coverage on television.
His
that
hair's
when it
always
comes
wet.
to defense, his wet hair makes him so fast. When it comes to defense, he's a psychopath. He's an absolute psychopath. Yeah. So many times you'd see Big Nelson Asafa Solomona have a run. You'd see Justin Olam have a run. He'd be leading the line speed, and he would just hurl himself in front, hurl himself in these enormous men, act as a speed bump, but a very successful speed bump. Yeah. His service was great. That kick for the Matt Croker try, he's used that kick a couple of times. There was, I know, one try from it. There was a disallowed try from it.
Yeah.
Neat little trick out of his bag of several of them.
Yeah.
And good service as well.
Yeah.
I think it'd be safe to say to all you people, all of you, every single one of you who said that Phoenix is the worst player in the NRL, shut up.
Shut up.
Yeah. He's been phenomenal. I think it'd be safe to say he's been one of the most improved players in the entirety of the NRL.
I've been really excited to see I thought his ceiling of ability was here, and he just keeps raising the roof every time, and the ceiling
He might
and
hit
the
the fairy lights one of these days.
He'll be up there.
Yeah.
He just keeps getting better and better, and he's still a pup. He's played 45 odd first grade games, and he's only 21 years old or something.
Which is so strange. It feels like he's been around for so long.
I know.
It feels like he's been rusted onto the place.
Well, he is now. We're not letting him go. He's our very own barnacle, and he can sit there for the remainder of his life.
Speaking of barnacles, what barnacle was on your head that you had to take off?
The barnacle. Yes, my hat barnacle went to the very own Tyson Responsibly. Now, Liam, when looking at this game, I started to reflect on old Storm games that we've played. And even when we've been in some form, we come up against the Melbourne Storm and we get quite tight. The players get all tight. They get all sort of flustered. Like, how can we beat these sort of top-tier teams and this team that's been in so many grand finals you can't even count them on one hand, even though two of them were removed because of cheating. But they've just got this aura to them that you really can't just describe. And it seems like all the teams just tighten up. They don't play their natural game. But this game,
The orifices tighten.
well, there's like all the sphincters, and there's more than just your anus. There's other sphincters in the body. They all tighten up, and it seems like we've had a big whiff of amyl or something, and all the sphincters have just loosey-goosened. You're out there, and it seemed like the person leading the loosey-goosey charge of playing his most natural game and showing the Melbourne Storm, we're not afraid of you. We don't care about who you are or where you've come from. We're just going to play how we play here in Newcastle, and that was our very own Tyson Responsibly. He played amazingly loosey-goosey football.
Which Melbourne don't know how to deal with. When they come up against a good structured team, they know how to deal with it. They know they're going to do this, they're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Tyson.
Yeah.
But to me, it was the perfect Tyson Responsibly game. It was the game that epitomised who he was as a player and how he plays. Because if you look closely at the Trent Liero try and the Justin Olam try,
Missed tackles.
straight through Tyson.
Yeah.
They went straight
Yeah.
through him.
Yeah.
But then he ran, he was playing that ad-lib footy. He was crabbing across the field. He was throwing odd passes.
Yeah.
He kicked a 40-20 and no one noticed.
Yeah.
He kicked the ball The whole stadium went, oh, Tyson kicked it.
Watching
The ball
on-
bounced and went out. The whole stadium went, Tyson kicked it out. He was smiling and giggling, and then the referee put his arm up and said, ball Knights, and the whole crowd just kind of...
Erupted into a...
We didn't even erupt. We just went, what? It was just a collective, enjoyable silence. It was just, huh? Huh? What happened?
You're looking at the back five for us, Liam. It's really hard to really go past all of them playing so well. Bradman Best, obviously, with a tremendous try. Dane Gagai with some beautiful hands to get Dominic Young over. Kalen Ponga doing his regular best, and Greg Marju again, up there at around that 200 meter, 171 running meters, unstoppable.
And I think it's safe to say, people always opine about how amazing the Penrith Panthers back five is, best back five in the comp. I think it would be safe to say at this point that Newcastle maybe have the second to third best back five in the competition with the way they're performing. Greg Marjeur, Dominic Young, they've got it all. They do the hard yards out of the troublesome area, yardage work, if you will. They score amazing tries. They save tries. They just do wonderful things. Greg's try that he scored in the stands, we all thought, oh, well, he's bowled it. No try,
probably,
Greg. Better luck next time.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He bobbled it a couple of times. He got the ball down. He did everything a winger needs to do.
Amazing.
So I think, the back five is setting such a good platform. Tyson Frizzell, he's wound the clock back. This
Hasn't he?
Tyson Frizzell.
Who's
100 years old.
He's chopped some young fellow's legs. He's chopped off and fastened them to his own pelvis.
And, if you look at the numbers again, we're going to look at the numbers. 168 run meters from Tyson, 50 post contact. The man just keeps
Huge.
moving and moving. 2 line breaks, 6
tackle
tackle breaks. A
Ugh.
bunch of very good offloads too. That
did
was the
have
other thing about this game. The Knights were throwing a lot of offloads. They were throwing a lot of interesting passes, but there was always players around the ball to receive. Whether it was an offload, whether it was a pass that's come out of nowhere, there was always players moving around the ball, ready to receive, ready to do some damage. That was the most impressive thing. Knights teams of the past, things like that's happened.
Yeah.
No one's there.
No one's there.
We're just standing out, hanging about, lollygagging out on the wing. But this time, there was everyone everywhere all at once. Like
And
that great movie.
That thing with the
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
There's Matt Croker does. Not only did he score,
Maitland's own Matt Croker.
not only did he score a magnificent try,
Barber-esque. Ben Barber-esque.
but
it
he
was.
recovered from it and bounced back to his feet and showboated straight to the crowd. And I thought, gee, that's impressive.
For a big man.
I thought I'm slightly attracted to that man now, and he's not classically handsome.
He's very unclassically handsome, in fact. He's Maitland handsome.
He's like the kid that was just, showing off in front of the girls, and all the girls go, there's a schoolyard. I'm going to go, oh, he's doing, breaking the rules and doing something athletic. He's thrown a ball up on the roof and he's just climbed up and got it down. Wow, that's exciting. That's the kind of feeling that I had.
And who
Schoolgirl
put-
excitement.
And who put in that kick?
Phoenix
Crossland, who
Phoenix
gets the
Crossland.
schoolgirl excitement in me bubbling away. But that was not the only... Oh, hang on. Yes, stats. Now, this is an area where the Knights usually lose and lose terribly. But if you look at the stats, they were fairly even.
Yeah.
52% possession Knights, 48 Storm. 76% completion rate, completing worse than the Storm.
Yeah.
And look at this, Jousters, all down the middle. They're all lines down the middle, except for the line breaks, of course, which are fantastic. Very, very good.
Wonderful.
But it was a game where usually as a Knights fan, you'd look back at those stats and say, boy, how did we lose that one? But now we say, boy, how did we win that one?
Yes.
But we know how we won it.
How were we ever concerned that we might lose it?
Well, I wasn't concerned because I put a $10 multi on.
Hey.
Paid for my 8 drinks that I had at the footy there.
Wonderful. So you
And
won
they're expensive
$800 win.
I did. And look, just to round it out, I think it was very classy. We had plenty of barbs thrown at us by Christian Welch in that press conference. I know the boys would have been watching that on repeat for the
course.
week leading up to this game. So very classy from Christian. Too good tonight. Knight's very strong. Handshake emoji. Takes him to 0 from 2 from that media conference. Thankfully, he's on a break from media conference duties, and best of luck for the rest of the year. Now,
Classy. I like that.
he's a classy fella, Christian Welch. He's an excellent fella. He is perfect as kind of the face of the RLPA, the face of the rugby league players. He's very intelligent. He's working on his masters, his MBA.
Well spoken.
So I forgive you, Christian. You're very, very gracious in defeat, and I appreciate that. But that wasn't the Knights' only big win of the weekend.
Of course
Maggie, how
not.
good is it to have 2 successful
Two.
Newcastle Knights teams?
Two wins, 2 games. I don't think we might not ever happen again. So it's good to hold on to this moment.
We won 2 in a row in the same weekend. When was the last time that's happened, Knights fans?
The Knights women defending their premiership winning ways of 2022. Or did that carry over to 2023?
Millie who?
Was that 2023?
Millie who?
Millie, yeah.
Yeah, who's that?
Go on, yeah, you and Adam Elliott can-
Mrs. Elliott
Yeah,
now to
yeah.
Mrs. Elliott to you, Justice. She's gone. Doesn't matter. Didn't skip a beat.
No.
There was a couple of absolute standouts in this performance. Caitlin Moran, 2 try assists, 2 of the best try assists I've ever seen as well. She threw a cutout pass that I think may have gone 20 to 25 metres straight onto the chest of the winger to stroll over and score.
Yeah.
There was a kick that was one of the most deft touches you'll ever see.
Wonderful.
2 try assists from Caitlin Moran. The other Caitlin...
But also famously, she told... she celebrated the Queen's death. And, for 2 Irish boys, that really gets us going.
That's it. It got us in our hearts. I believe she called the Queen a dirty dog.
Oh, God bless her.
And we agree.
God bless
We
Caitlin,
agree.
not the Queen, because she's dead now.
Lizzie's buried 6 feet under Maggie Thatcher. Caitlin Johnson. Oh, she committed a couple of murders.
Who?
Caitlin Johnson.
Oh, I thought
Maggie ruined an entire industry when she decentralised the coal industry in England.
Caitlin Johnson, who's she murdering? The girl from
I didn't
Windale?
the girl from Windale, carried on with her Windale ways just by smashing people.
Yeah.
She just smashes and crashes.
Unceremoniously. Yeah.
She's dethroned the Queen herself. And then I think when we come back at the end of the year, we're going to look at, highlight reels from various players throughout the season. I think Jessie Southwell's right foot step may have a highlight reel all of its own. She pulled off a right foot step to score a try that was amongst the best I've seen.
She's got the tongue out as well. It's important. If a really good stepper will have the tongue out. She's not the kind of player that when they played touch, she played it with the cap backwards.
You're going to play it with the cap backwards.
The confident players playing touch football would play it with the cap backwards, and you knew, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And especially with the tongue, it's just everything. It's just like, that's a confident player that knows about their ability, that's going to about tear you up.
And the Dragons aren't a half bad side when it comes to the women's NRL, so it wasn't like they're beating any easy beats.
Played the preliminary final against them.
So they're not beating any easy beats. So it's a great start to the season for the NRLW Newcastle Knights. 2 wins from 2 in 1 weekend.
Can't wait to see it. And Liam, this week, we're about to preview the Canberra game.
Yes.
But the Canberra game's not at Marathon Stadium, not at McDonald Jones Home. It's down... Look, this is the middle of winter. You can't go to Canberra in the middle of winter. You'll die. It's freezing down there.
It's full of politicians.
But I'll tell you where's warm and comforting and very, very Novocastrian.
The Hamilton Station Hotel.
It's glorious. It's not only friendly in the sense of you see friends there, but it's warm. It gives you that kind of energy that when you know you're there, you've come home. You get off the train and you're home at the Hamilton Station.
It engenders hope. It brings a feeling of warmth. I think you already discussed the warmth.
It's it's warm. It's full of hope. It's at the top of it. It's covered in bricks. It sort of reminds you.
It's on a corner, like all good pubs should be.
Yeah,
Pubs should be on corners. Don't put a pub in the middle of a road.
It's the place that reminds you very much of Newcastle, and Newcastle is everyone's home, whether you live here or spiritually.
Yeah. There's no we grewy, you flewy attitude.
No.
You're all welcome.
Welcome.
Except Sydney people. Stay out.
Stay out of there.
Cockheads.
You can go to the other one. They're not definitely not the Hamilton Station Hotel, which is the best pub in the entire world. We're going to take a halftime break. We'll be right back to talk about everything Knights Raiders. Welcome back to the second half of the Joust. Now, Len, before we leave everything to do with that miraculous game, there was a segment that we always like to do featuring all the bits and bobs that goes into pastry, the pie of the week, try of the week, but you don't have one this week. Why is that?
Such was my disappointment, Jousters, with my pie of the week that I forgot to put it in the first segment, so I thought I'd bring it up now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Jousters, I made maybe not a mistake, but maybe an erring of judgment to purchase a Villies meat pie at the Rugby League ground that is known as McDonald Jones Stadium. Villies meat pies. They supply to a lot of the stadiums. Now, this pie was very disappointing. It felt like it had been sitting in the warmer for hours, but not in the good way.
Yeah.
The pastry was too crispy. It was underfilled. It just was a very disappointing affair, which is why I didn't want to connect it to the amazing try that was the Lachlan Fitzgibbon try. Now, we all remember Joust. It went through about 10 sets of hands. Lachlan Fitzgibbon took it in. We all thought at the ground, oh, no, he's bombed it. Dad even said, oh, he's bombed that. He's going to be buying drinks for the whole team this weekend.
Yeah.
But he didn't bomb it, and he scored. And that's why I thought it would be disingenuous to compare it to the pie that I had this week, Joust. So apologies for forgetting that one. But take away from this that the try was amazing, and maybe stick to the hot chips when you're at the stadium.
Liam, we can only move forwards, not backwards. Backwards, not forwards.
Twirling,
always
twirling.
twirling. And when we look forwards to potentially the 4th win on the trot is against the Canberra Raiders. Now, they're quite high up on the ladder, Liam. They're up there in the top 5. I think that's not usually a thing. It's usually top 4, top 8.
Yeah.
They're up there about 5th, I think.
Which was the old style of the final series. It was always the top 5 for years before they introduced the McIntyre system in the top 8. It was always the top top 5. So at this point,
Yeah.
Canberra would have been making the finals, even in that antiquated system.
Even outside of our form, Liam, I like when we play the Raiders because we got a fairly good record against them. If you remember back even 2016 when we couldn't buy a win, we didn't get a win against them, but we got a draw.
Which, on a season where we only won one game, a draw was very good at that point in time.
Absolutely it was.
But if we look at the Raiders for and against just quickly there on the ladder, I think the thing that really sums up the Raiders, as we've just discussed, they are in 5th position, but they have a points differential of negative 56, and I think that sums up the Raiders.
Yeah.
They're such an odd team. They don't work in the way that other rugby league teams work.
No.
They win in all sorts of strange ways that don't make sense. They lose in all sorts of strange ways that don't make sense, including their loss most recently to the Warriors, which we'll come back to in a moment. But let's look at the team list, Nagy.
If we go through, you were saying earlier, just Sebastian Chris obviously filling in for Xavier. No, I was going to say
Savage.
Xavier Savage.
Yes. Now, Sebastian Chris, he's had an interesting season. He
Yeah.
was more of a centre, wing, second row, that kind of fella, playing
Big
out
fella.
on the edge. Big fella.
Big
Big
guy.
well-built fella.
Yeah,
Powerful runner. He was thrust into the fullback role, thrust unceremoniously into the fullback role. Didn't look like a natural fullback, but he's very much an effort player, and he's improved quite drastically this season into a pretty decent fullback. So I think he's going to be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, of course. We've got the veterans of Jared Croker and Jordan Rapana.
Rapana, of
Yeah,
course, the deadly duo. No, they're not a deadly duo.
not
They're
a
just
duo.
two players on the same team. There's no deadly duo about them.
No.
You got the old man, Jared Croker,
Yeah.
oldest man in the NRL after Josh Hodgson.
Jared is now gone, so I guess Jared Croker's been elevated to the eldest. And, of course, Jack Whiten there is finishing his Canberra career off. So he might be out for a big one. In good form as well. Fogarty, Papale, Tarpanay, all of the A's.
That's where you want to watch out is their forward pack. It's a very strong forward pack, peppered with representative players. And I think the Knights forwards are largely unchanged, barring a quadricep injury to Daniel Saifidi, who drops out of the team, makes way for the Druff.
That's right. Maybe the Druff comes to the bench, heads and shoulders, knees and toes. Brody Jones.
Adam O'Brien went to IGA New Land and bought a fresh bottle of Head and Shoulders there, brought him back. So I think given the performance last week, I'm not too concerned.
I like it.
I like it.
I think our, and especially with Jacob Saifidi as well, coming off his second game for Origin, with his good friend Bradman Best in the kind of form that he's in. I think Canberra Raiders will be very worried.
And especially given the last game we see up here on the screen, Canberra lost 21-20. Again, in a way that only Canberra could. They were losing by quite a bit. They scored in the 78th minute. They scored in the 79th minute. Jared Croker missed the goal in the 78th minute that would have won the game, only to lose in the first minute of golden point overtime by a field goal. Normal teams would maybe feel a bit of a hangover from that type of a game, that intense, that close. But Canberra are just so used to weird things like that happening. They're like a goldfish. It happens and they probably just forget and go, oh, well, it doesn't matter.
Speaking of things that used to happen and they've forgotten about, do they still do the horn with the Viking clap?
I hope so. I like
Do
the
they still
horn.
do that?
I always liked the Viking clap as well.
And it's not really someone blowing a horn; it's just someone putting their mouth to something that
I was so disappointed when I found that out. I
dozens of
thought it
other
was an
people.
actual functioning Viking horn.
Yeah, so did I.
It really it ruined a lot of, there's the day you find out Santa's not real.
Yeah.
There's the day you find out the Viking horn isn't real.
Yeah.
And it's the day you find out that Karl Marx was right about everything. They're sad days.
They're all very sad days. But yeah, I just remember thinking, of course, because they'd get like people coming up there. And there was a woman in her 60s, and she was up there, and she was just like,
She got a good set of pipes.
I thought, oh my goodness. They might have. What are they putting in the water?
Was it
down
Dawn
in Canberra?
Fraser?
Probably
She's
someone
well
of that
known
ilk.
Canberran, I think.
Yeah.
But if we look back to the last time that we played the Raiders, they were in much worse form. They, I think that was before they won about 5 games in one row.
Round 4, but we were in bad form as well. It was surprised that we took this on.
2 from 5 conversions. That's a surprise.
Lockie Miller was still on the side at the time.
God, I miss Lockie.
But of course, this
Miss him
was
terribly.
if you remember back. We managed to score 3 second half tries, all in the space of 7 minutes.
What a fruitful 7 minutes.
Very fruitful and delicious, and that was the last time that we scored. We scored the 49th. We held the lead for the remainder. It was quite an interesting game. Hopefully, we can repeat that kind of form down there in Canberra.
I'm thinking a blowout.
You're thinking a blowout?
I'm thinking a blowout.
Well, how many tries? Like we scored 5 tries against the Storm. We scored 7, I think, against the Tigers, and 11 against the Bulldogs. So we're on a bit of a downward trajectory, but there's still plenty of tries coming through the door.
It's still a lot. It's still a lot, even to go downward from. So I'm going to go Newcastle. I was about to say New South Wales. I'm still buzzing from Origin 3. I'm going to go Newcastle Knights 32.
Yep.
to Canberra Raiders 26.
I'll go 28-20 for the Newcastle Knights.
Delicious scorelines, both. But that's not the only game we've got coming off a win, Nagy.
No, of course.
The NRLW Knights, of course, following up their strong, powerful win against St. George
Illawarra
Dragons,
Yeah.
coming up against the newcomers of the NRLW in the Cowboys.
The Cowboys.
Didn't they rebrand them the Cow Women?
Potentially.
I feel like that's a branding issue. They've really stuffed that up.
They've said
North
Cowboys,
Queensland Cow Women. Or Cowgirls, I guess.
Cowgirls, probably,
Because that's
yeah.
already a thing. Cow Women's not a thing.
Yeah, of course. But it could be
it's
a brand new concept.
It's an easy rebrand.
Yeah.
Actually, the Raiders did that a couple of years ago with their female team.
Did they put a bit of lipstick on the Viking man?
They did. No, they rebranded it. It didn't work out too well. But again, the Knights come in with a largely unchanged lineup. A couple of standouts last week. Of course, Tamika Upton was phenomenal. Caitlin Moran, of course, sticks there. Jesse Southwell, Caitlin Johnson. It's got all the building blocks. Yasmin Clydesdale, of course.
Yeah.
The building blocks of that premiership team.
They're still there.
No bloody Millie, no bloody problem.
No, that's right. That's what I've been saying. Obviously, we're coming across a few former Knights as well in Autumn Rain Stevens Daly. And
Maybe the first dual hyphenated name
Yeah.
in rugby league.
it really sticks out there.
Old Autumn forenames, they call
Although
it.
Francesca Goldthorpe also has a nice ring to it as well.
Doesn't Francesca Goldthorpe sound like
What
a
did I say?
swimmer?
Did I
An
say
Olympic
Francesca? What did I say? Francesca?
Sounds like an Olympic swimmer.
Yeah.
Francesca
Does
Goldthorpe.
Yeah. Strong names.
Hackett,
Very
Hackett
strong
and
names.
Thorpe,
And of course,
there's nothing in it.
And of course, Kira Dibb, that was famously playing for the Newcastle Knights last year as well.
Shafted. Didn't
Yeah.
need her.
Someone-
Didn't need her.
Someone was saying that she looks, she gives the sense of the female character from the film The Little Giants. Have you seen the film Little Giants?
What's it about?
It's a gridiron game. It's sort of like like the ragtag team
Oh,
beats
yeah.
the big strong team at the
Yeah.
end.
Love those movies.
Yeah, but there's one girl that plays and it's like, oh, girls can't play, but she turns out to play really well.
We
Yeah,
had
that's got a real Kira
back
Dibb.
when I was playing growing up in Group 2, it was rough and tumble competition Group 2, you know. There was country people everywhere. Bellingen had a young girl playing in the under-12s, and our coaches said to us, all right, boys, just because they got a girl running around doesn't mean you go soft on her. You go out there and you belt her.
Yeah.
And we belted this poor young girl, and she got up every time, and she kept running, and she ran over a few of our boys. It was pretty impressive, to be quite honest.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Very impressive.
Well, they're proven now. Now this competition is proven. It's very, very good football. I enjoy it thoroughly, especially when our very own Newcastle Knights come away with the win, which I'm sure they'll get plenty more of that this season. Something
This and that and that and this. Plenty of it all.
Something a bit different for the sack this week. Now, we encourage anyone that wants to enter their sack things. We're no longer accepting written English or typed, but if you send it through on a voice message to our Facebook page, we'll be able to play it on the show. And our very first, the inaugural voice message is from a jouster from way back.
An alumni. Oh, no, he was never on the show.
Never on the show.
Yeah.
But this is the opportunity to be on the show. Is our message from Kelly Wilson. And Kelly, what do you have to say?
Righto, fellas. Sitting here minding the tin lids, and all I could think is how good was last night's game? On a scale of 1 to fully barred, that was a mini monster truck that just hit me in the face. On a scale of 1 to full bar, how hard were you after last night's game?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. It's obviously the plights of fatherhood there, not being able to get a moment to yourself without being hit in the face by a toy. But of course, Liam, it's a very, very good question of how excited were you to see the Newcastle Knights beat the Melbourne Storm on a scale of 1 to fully barred?
Well,
Of course, you were in public as well. So,
I was in public, but then I went home and I wasn't in public. And put it this way, I listened to a lot of Limp Bizkit and drank a bunch of red wine. It was great. I was just sitting there in the recliner at home. Everyone else was in bed, and I'm just jamming break stuff and bopping around. So that's how barred up I was, Kelly Wilson.
I've never
New
been...
metal
I've
from
watched...
the 2000s was just coursing through my veins. I was Fred Durst personified.
He was a musician at one stage, wasn't he?
He was a great musician at one stage.
Chocolate starfish. What
And the hot dog flavoured water.
Oh, Christ. What
The
happened?
chocolate starfish was the butthole.
Yeah, I've got, I made that connection.
I didn't know that. For many years, I didn't know that, Jess. I was an innocent little boy. Due to technical constraints, however, Jess, that is our only voice question. But I don't believe we got your answer, Nagy, about the bar you had.
Off the charts, off the absolute charts. It was amazing. I've never found myself in recent memory going back to watch so many highlights of the Newcastle Knights that I have in the last few weeks. It's been an excitement level that's been off the scale, off the Richter scale.
They need to reinvent a scale to give, an accurate reflection of how excited we both were.
It's incredible. And the thing that will make it even more exciting than being off the scale and continue off the scale into the ether is the stratosphere. Is going to be if we go 4 in a row and we beat the Canberra Raiders this weekend.
A quartet of victories.
Speaking about this weekend, once you've gone to the Hamilton Station Hotel for the Canberra Raiders game, go back there the next day, as I will be for the Sunday UFC. There's happening 291. There's possibly the best card of the entire year.
Is that so, Nagy? Who's on the card?
Well, I'll tell you, Liam. I'll tell you who's on the card because it's right in front of me here. We got Justin Gaethje coming up against Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Jan Blachowicz. I'm butchering all these names. Alex Pereira, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson coming in against Michael Pereira. I don't think there's any relation. Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green. Look, it's a wonderful card.
Now, Nag, you're ready? Those fighters Australian. Are they good, honest Australian punchers?
No, I don't think any of them are.
Oh.
No.
Quite a difference from the last UFC
But it was filled
draw
with
card, which was nothing
filled
but
with Australians.
Australian.
But these are filled with absolute brawlers. It's going to be incredible. And there's only one place you can go and watch UFC in Newcastle, and that's the Hamilton Station Hotel on all their magnificent screens.
And some music maybe in the background.
Oh, there'll be music.
There'll be footy.
There'll be partying.
Yeah, there'll be everything.
The best thing about a Sunday watching the UFC is you go there in the afternoon. You go have a few beers, enjoy, and then the card finishes, and then you can just
Head on home. Trundle on.
You could probably catch the 4 p.m. game.
Oh,
and then,
for sure.
And then trundle home. Should be home for dinner.
Or you can have dinner at the pub.
Or you had dinner at the pub.
Yeah, you can have a fancy hot dog they have there. A beautiful poutine there.
Yeah, wonderful. All those.
Then trundle past Cappadocia on your way home and jam a kebab up your ass. Because it's coming out there painfully anyway.
As is tradition. If you like us, Justice, please follow us on all the following. It's the Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, YouTube. I always say Snapchat.
We don't have that one,
no. Twitter.
Send your voicemails into the sack as
Yeah,
well.
the voicemails
We'll
into
have
the
the
sack.
technical issues worked out next
we can
week.
play them all.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll play
Hopefully.
them. Oh, yeah, we probably will.
Yeah.
Do you still have Twitter, Liam?
Yeah.
What's your handle?
Wolf Singlet.
Wolf Singlet.
I only tweet every couple of weeks and it's usually about Limp Bizkit. So if you want to hear about that, go jump on board.
Our new metal boy. Thank you very much for catching up with us this week, Justice. Hopefully next week we'll bring you 4 on the trot. Very excited, and we'll see you then.